Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Monday night and you're riding with the road crew. This is Token, your host, and I'm coming to you live from Omaha, Nebraska. Beautiful Monday night, and glad you guys are able to join us. I hope you all are staying safe out there. The world is not in the best condition right now, so I hope you all are staying indoors. You are practicing good social distancing. You all are staying safe and healthy, and we're here to talk a little bit of liberty tonight. Now, later tonight, we're going to have Dr. Kyle Varner on to talk about this coronavirus that's sweeping the country, but that's not what I want to talk to you right now. Right now, I have a candidate for president of the United States. He's running as a libertarian right now. I want you all to give a good welcome to Sam Robb. Welcome, Sam.
Hey, guys.
So
how you all
the
doing?
First time here's the thing. I thought I knew most libertarian candidates running for president, but I didn't know about you until I went to the Libertarian Party of Iowa State Convention a few weeks ago. So, and the funny thing was, we were sitting right next to you the entire, convention.
Okay.
And stupid me, I didn't even bother to say hi. So we go into the debate, right? I'm looking at stage and I know everybody up there but you. But you impressed me a great deal in that debate. I'm like, why the fuck didn't I just invite him over a little bit to sit down and have a conversation with me for our podcast? I was kicking myself because I had to leave right after the debate. So now I am fixing that. Now I'm finally having Sam Robb on the program.
Thank you, sir.
For all you guys to listen to. So you can thank your debate performance in Iowa for this interview, because I was very much impressed with it.
I should be kicking myself because I should be saying, oh, man, I'm sitting right next to a guy who does a podcast. I should be talking to him. And we missed each other.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm like famous libertarian man over here. Everyone knows who I
am. No, it's interesting. I've actually run into that a lot in the in my run. I'm a new face. I'm a new guy in the Libertarian Party. Kind of trying to it kind of makes a splash. Hey, here I am. I'm running for president, and I have to give a lot of thanks to a guy up in Olean, New York, Luke Wenke. He organized a debate up there. And it was their first time doing a debate. And he wanted anybody he could get on stage. So I'm like, fantastic, I can do that. And once I did that was kind of got things rolling. And people were like, oh, well, hey, here's a guy that seems kind of serious. He's not just up hawking some bizarre idea or whatever. So things kind of snowballed from there. That's how I ended up in Iowa eventually.
Absolutely. And I'd say with a lot of the libertarian candidates, you have people who've been in the party for a while, people who have held officer positions at the national party. You have a former governor running, right? You have a comedian running. You have people who've been involved for a long time. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement in the party?
Well, honestly, this is interesting. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a little town called White Oak in the suburbs, and basically, blue collar Democrat town. Went off to college, joined the Navy, and found out that when you're in the Navy, when you're in the military, basically there's one group of people who doesn't like you, and there's one group of people who thinks you're okay. So that's the point where I registered Republican. I guess kind of rebelling against my upbringing too. And the reason it's interesting, the reason I registered Republican was at that point I realized I knew that there were libertarians out there. I for years as a teenager I'd been reading fiction, libertarian fiction, F. Paul Wilson, L. Mill Smith, Robert Heinlein, and I honestly thought libertarianism as a philosophy was really, I was like, wow, this is really cool. I like this. But I honestly did not realize that there was a libertarian party. until many years later. At that point, I was voting Republican. I was a Republican. The Libertarians are out there. Okay, yeah, and but I started describing myself as a Republican with Libertarian leanings, and those leanings around 2012 actually tipped me over, and that was the point where I stayed in the party long enough to vote against Mitt Romney in the general election or in the primaries, and to voice my disgust with that choice in the Republican Party, and then immediately went and changed my registration to Libertarian. So I've been a Libertarian for around 8 years now, a small L Libertarian. Became a big L Libertarian, registered, joined the party, and decided to run for president, which has been interesting. So it's kind of a new, like you said. One of the things that I do appreciate is I'm a new face. I'm not somebody's been around for a while. I haven't held office. I haven't been a big name podcaster or a big name, publisher or anything. But I'm getting attention, and I love that because I'm just a guy from Pittsburgh, and I'm not. People aren't reacting to me to say I'm the person. They're reacting to the message, and the message is that I've got out there really kind of a pragmatic. Hey, let's start. We need to turn around. We need to change direction, and we need to start taking steps in the right direction to show Americans that liberty is the solution to their problem. That seems to resonate. I like that.
So you talked about a tipping point in 2012 where you decided to, finally switch from Republican to Libertarian. What was the event that happened that convinced you that the Republican Party wasn't the party for you and you had to switch over?
Like I said, stayed around long enough to vote against Mitt Romney. Nothing against Mitt Romney as a person, right? And this is where politics gets a little weird, right? You can disagree with someone. At least you should be able to disagree with someone and not feel like they're a horrible human being. I know that's not the way politics goes these days, but in all honesty, Mitt Romney seems like a really nice guy. Seems like a fantastic guy, family man. I'd love to have him as a neighbor. Feel the same way about Barack Obama. Feel the same way about a bunch of other politicians. But I don't want them to have their hands on the levers of power, right? And Mitt Romney, when I looked at the debate, when I looked at the Republican slate, I thought he was the absolute weakest candidate. I thought he was the most liberal candidate that they were offering up. And when the Republican Party like I said, I thought that they were the party of small government. I thought that they were the party of lower taxes. I thought they were the party of reduced regulation. I thought they were the party of returning power to the people. And then they say, oh, no, we're going to elect this guy who's essentially when you get right down to it, kind of a soft socialist. And I said, no, that's it. I'm done. I'm out. I've given you enough chances. You've had 3 strikes. You're out. So
yeah, I remember that election because it was kind of funny because the Republicans went through every other candidate before they finally said, screw it. I guess we'll go with Mitt Romney. Right, because you had Santorum, you had Herman Cain, you had Newt Gingrich, even Ron Paul had his moment, right?
Yep.
They tried out every single one, and every single one had a fatal flaw that just they couldn't look past it. And here was Mitt Romney, Mr. Neat, clean, and proper, but the most milquetoast, boring candidate of the lot of them. And that's who it's kind of like what the Democrats did this cycle. Right, because they went through. Yeah. They wanted Kamala Harris, they wanted Elizabeth Warren, then they wanted Bernie Sanders, and they wound up picking the most milquetoast, boring candidate they possibly could. Probably going to have the same results, quite frankly.
Yeah.
They picked a guy who can't think or speak straight.
That's a struggle, though. Really, when you're looking at the candidates, and this was actually a conscious decision that I made early on. You talked about the finding fatal flaws in all the candidates. It doesn't matter, and I think Trump has shown us that, right? And I'm kind of glad for his candidacy and his run in that respect, in that it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter where you're coming from, how clean you are, how much you try to present yourself as being a Mitt Romney. They're going to find with Mitt Romney, it was binders full of women, right? It was a chance phrase that he said that everybody latched onto, and they're like, "We're going to use this to destroy him." It doesn't matter.
Yeah, the dumbest thing.
Yeah, that's why if you look at and this was like I said, conscious decision of mine. If you look at my online media profile, right? I actually mentioned early on in my campaign, hey, here's my Facebook page. Here's my here's the blog that I use. Here's my where I post the pictures that I go for on walks. I'm not scrubbing my social media. I'm not hiding who I am. And it doesn't matter even if I did, even if I wiped all that clean, if I ended up on the, getting the nomination, it doesn't matter. People would make up things about me. People would, they would come up, they would listen to something, and they say, "Oh, look at him. He said binders full of women on this podcast," right? And they would use that and say, "Oh, he's just
binders full of women."
Exactly. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're running into a hostile situation. They're going to use everything that they have. And I think the only defense there is to just be like Trump showed us, right? Is to be who you are. I don't care about you. I don't care what you think. I am who I am.
I think that would almost be preferable to what usually happens for Libertarian candidates, because what usually happens is we just get ignored, right? They don't even feel the need to attack libertarians, right? Like Gary Johnson had his moment in the spotlight in 2016, and what is Aleppo pretty much just sunk him right there, right then, right? They opened the door a little bit, just long enough for him to say something down, like, nope, back into obscurity you go, right? What is Aleppo? That's it. Hillary and Trump are allowed to say whatever crazy nonsense they want.
Oh yeah,
but you asked what Aleppo was, and you're banished to infinity.
Yes, and that's the double standard, right? You can be Joe Biden sniffing everybody's hair, right? You can be Trump grabbing everybody everywhere, right? You can mock people and make fun of people and make all these gaffes, and people are like, "Oh yeah," but you have to understand he's this is just part of who is his charm. It's his whatever, and you're some other candidate, and you eat two French fries at once, and they're like, "Oh man, look at this heathen right here." So it's just not worth it. It's just not worth even trying.
Absolutely. And so what made you want to run for president? Like, you're relatively new to the party. I mean, there's other libertarian candidates who are newer than you. And I think Ligon Chafee has been a libertarian for all of 10 minutes. But what convinced you to what was it that was missing from the Libertarian Party candidates that you thought you could bring to the table?
Well, I think the two major things for me are I'm basically an unapologetic Christian and pro-life candidate. I think that's something that is a benefit to the Libertarian Party. And this is something I want to be very clear on. I understand there's a lot of people in the Libertarian Party that don't agree with me, specifically on the pro-life issue. And we'll even narrow that down, because I think they would agree with me on a lot of what I consider pro-life, right? They would agree with me that we need to revamp the adoption system. They would agree with me that we need to make some significant changes to the foster care system. They would agree with me that we need to, as a society, to be supporting single mothers throughout, basically not just through their pregnancy, but throughout their years. There's a lot that goes into being pro-life that is not talking about abortion, and I think a lot of people would agree with me on that. The issue really comes down to and from a libertarian viewpoint, do you consider an unborn child, to be a human being, and is hurting them, is killing them, a NAP violation, a non-aggression principle violation? Some libertarians say yes, some libertarians say no, and we can argue about that. we can talk about that. I have had so many discussions with people at different conferences in Chicago, in Philadelphia, where I've had pro-choice individuals come up to me and say, "Hey, Sam, I want you to know I'm pro-choice, and I want to talk to you about your position," which is amazing to me. That's something that you don't get. I don't think outside of the Libertarian Party very much, because if you're pro-choice in the Republican Party, you're basically going to get pushed to the side, right? If you even though they claim, and this is a weird thing, because even though they claim to be pro-life, they don't actually do a whole lot along those lines. On the libertarian or on the liberal side, on the Democrat side, you've got major players in the party saying, "Yeah, there's no room in the party for pro-life Democrats." You actually have there's a group on Twitter, pro-life Democrats, that they want to draft a pro-life candidate, and there's nobody willing to step up there for them. So you've got two sides of the house where you just cannot have this conversation, and you've got the libertarians out on the porch sitting around, and anybody's welcome. We can talk about this. We're willing to tackle the hard problems. We're willing to discuss the issues, and how do you balance the life of the mother versus the life of the child. And I don't agree with you on this, and I don't agree with you on that. And at the end of the day, we settle up, and we haven't resolved anything, but we still agree on 95% of everything else, which is awesome. You can do that in the Libertarian Party. You can't do that much anywhere else.
You see, and it was that position that impressed me about your debate performance, because it takes a lot of guts to sit in front of a room full of libertarians and preach an unapologetically pro-life position, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not something a lot of people are willing to do, because libertarians have a bad habit, right, of thinking that anyone that disagrees with you on anything is a statist, a filthy commie, a fascist, whatever the case may be. A lot of libertarians do this. I'm sure you've gotten that reaction from people. Like, you're a fascist. You just want to enslave women.
Yes. I actually have a meme that my daughter, who's a graphic design person, turned into a T-shirt for me that says, you can find it at go to samrob2020.com. You can find it through the merchandise link. You can buy a T-shirt that says, "It has been 0 days since the Libertarian Purity Police told me that I'm not a real libertarian." And
right,
I've been told I'm not a real libertarian quite a bit. But and it's interesting to me. It really is interesting to me that this seems to be one of the issues that is just absolutely dividing. You come down on one side or the other. You can kind of weasel around in the middle a little bit, but if you say that you are solidly on one side or the other, you are going to get some pretty serious opposition. You can be an anarchist and sit down and have a good discussion with someone who's a constitutional minarchist. You can be a left libertarian and sit down and have dinner with the right libertarian. I've done that. But there's some people that, if you are pro-life, if you're anti-abortion, if you consider that to be murder, then they're not going to talk to you. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. That's their position. I understand. They may not want to support me. They may not consider me a viable candidate because of that. But I'm not going to lie to people about who I am, about where I am, or what I think. So.
Absolutely. And see, I happen to agree with you on this issue. I'm pro-life myself. I grew up in a pro-life family. My entire family is pro-life. My mother votes solely on that one issue, right? Yeah. I could never get her to vote for a libertarian, because all the libertarian candidates that we've ever run are all pro-choice candidates, right? Mm-hmm. But see, here's the thing about it. I think that a libertarian, right, can hold either or position in good faith, right?
Yes.
And they're not a non-libertarian for it, right? I don't look at a pro-choice libertarian and say, you can't be a libertarian for holding that position, because I understand where they're coming from, right?
Oh, yeah.
It all comes down to whether or not you see a fetus as a human being or not. Because if it's a human being, they have rights, right? And those rights
Yep.
should be protected. But if
Yeah.
you don't consider them a human being, then they don't. So I can see where they're coming from. But the problem that I personally have with a lot of libertarians is that's not the defining issue when it comes to abortion. They come down to what they call the evictionist argument, right? And the
Yes.
evictionist
Yeah.
argument pretty much says it doesn't matter whether it's a baby or not. The mother still has the right to evict them if they so
Yes.
choose, right? And I hear this argument a lot, and I wonder what is your response to people when you hear them bring up this argument?
The eviction argument only makes sense if the eviction of the child does not result in death. And I'm serious. We'll go back to talking about common law. There are 3 instances in common law where it's recognized that you are responsible for providing aid and support to someone, and that is if you have been providing life-sustaining support to them already. You can't. If common law says that you can't stop. If you stop, that's murder. If you are the parent of a child, that's another instance where basically common law says, yeah, we expect you to do everything to support this child and keep them from dying. The struggling to remember the third issue. There is a third issue in common law. I'm going to go ahead and blame the anesthesia on my memory loss because I had surgery this morning. I had a kidney stone removed, so I'm gonna blame that. But there is a third instance in common law. All 3 of those apply to the case where you're talking about a mother and a child. Basically, if you are in that situation, you are responsible for the common law says you're responsible for the health of the child. If you're going to talk about eviction and say, okay, this isn't a clump of cells, but this is a human being, and I'm allowed to evict them, then as a parent, your responsibility is to make sure that they are going to be safe and they are going to be taken care of. You cannot simply say, oh yeah, an abortion is an eviction. No, it's not, because that results in the death of the child, and that means that's not an eviction. That is a murder. So the eviction argument really only makes sense if we have the technology to allow that to happen, and we may at some point. We've got people working on artificial wombs for different reasons. We've got people working on technologies to allow a child to be supported, and it may be that we reach a point where the eviction argument does make some sort of sense, but I don't think it does right now.
So even then, right, the evictionist argument would say that you don't have any obligation to the child at all, right? So the evictionist argument would say even if artificial wombs are available, that you don't have to use it, right?
Yeah.
That's the evictionist argument. It's solely the discretion of the mother. And quite frankly, this is one issue where I really, really hate how a lot of libertarians come at this issue, because this is an old Rothbardian argument, right? Rothbard made this argument. A lot of libertarians have latched onto it. And quite frankly, I find the evictionist argument to be a purely evil argument. Like, I can understand the argument where it's not a child, therefore the rights don't apply. That I can understand. Right?
Yeah.
The evictionist argument, and you pin down an evictionist, they will either retreat from the position or admit it. The evictionist argument applies just as much to newborns as it does to fetuses, right?
Yeah.
If you say that you're allowed to evict a child from the womb solely because the womb is your property, you must also apply that argument to a newborn child and your house. Right?
Yeah.
If you want to evict your newborn out into the freezing cold and leave it to die of the elements, that's your right. You're evicting them.
Yeah.
And I always bring up this example because this exact thing happened in Iowa, where a mother left her baby out in the elements for a week. And the only reason anyone ever found out what happened to this baby is because its corpse started to smell. Right? That's under the evictionist ethos, that's permissible because she merely evicted the baby from her property.
And when you get right down to it, when you talk about arguments from basically from different angles, right? You find that conservatives tend to talk about rule of law and civilization as a goal. Liberals, left on the left, it's more an instance of compassion and victim versus oppressor. When you talk in both of those cases, when you bring up the idea that a child is involved, really, there's something there that both sides find common ground in, because protecting children is something that civilized people do. It's something that compassionate people do. It's when you look at a child, you say a child. There's no way a child can be an aggressor. A child is always a potential victim of these actions. So there, I think that's one of the reasons why when you look at, for example, a Gallup poll last year where it said that 60% of pro-choice, and this is not Americans, this is not pro-life, this is 60% of people who identify as pro-choice. 60% of the people polled said that they believe that abortions past the 3-month mark should be illegal, right? So there's a strong understanding that at least at some point we need to say that this life is worth protecting, and that comes from that comes from a sense of compassion, that comes from a sense of justice, that comes from a sense of civilization, and that's something that we as a country need to address. The idea, the various ideas that get thrown around in terms of pro-choice, I honestly kind of amuse me, because not in the sense that they're funny arguments, but the pro-life argument basically has remained the same. Life begins at conception. A fetus is a child, at different stages of development, and therefore that life should be protected. Meanwhile, the pro-choice, you see them seesawing. Well, it's not really a life until brain activity, but then before that it's just a clump of cells. But then it is a human being, but you can do the eviction. You have the eviction argument, and the pro-choice argument really just comes back and forth and seesaws back and forth, and it comes down to, you are in a situation where you think that murdering another human being will solve your problem, and it won't. It won't. We need, and as a society, we need to get that across to people. I would love to see abortion end, not out of government force, not out of changes in laws, but because people come to understand that this is something that is wrong, and this is something that should be avoided, right? I think that's a long road to go down, but eventually that's where I'd like to see us as a civilization, protecting our children no matter what age they are.
So what are some of your thoughts on the other candidates running? Do you have favorites? Do you have least favorites? Or those that you just can't stand?
I get asked this a lot. I think we all get asked this a lot. The candidates themselves, we all get along. I like everybody individually, as a human being. And I think that's the way that politics used to be, and I think that's the way that we need to get back to in politics. The point where we can argue our points, and we can maybe even get vehement and passionate about them with each other, and then after that's done, we can sit down and sit down and have dinner together, right? Or go out and play a round of golf, or go axe throwing. I'd rather go axe throwing than golf.
Axe throwing's fun. That's a lot of fun.
It is awesome,
especially when you've had a few drinks and the axes start bouncing off the walls.
But that's the way I think that's the way it should be, and I think that's the way it is with the Libertarian candidates right now. We all know each other at this point. We all pretty much get along with each other. We have our disagreements politically. We don't let that spill over into our personal relationships. And the nice thing is, we have maybe a dozen, 15 candidates that are being very active, and we agree on a lot of things. We disagree on some things, but what we are iron sharpening iron. We are each of us is presenting ourselves and giving our arguments. Having them attacked by other candidates allows us to refine them, maybe change them, maybe see that that's not an argument I should be making. But we work together in that respect, where we're helping each other, we're honing each other, we're refining each other. If you look at the debates over the last couple of months, I think you really see that. You see a lot of us growing in terms of our ability to present our ideas, and that's a direct consequence of all our interactions. And the best thing about it is we have that dozen different viewpoints up there. We all want to get to the same destination. We're all headed for liberty. We all want a country that is more free, where people can make choices that affect them and their family without government interfering. We have different ideas on how to get there. And some of us are more concerned about avoiding obstacles and taking as many people along as we can. Some want to just drive straight through the muck and head to where we're going. So what we're really doing in this, in these debates, in this run up to the nomination, is we're trying to figure out which of us has a message that really will resonate with the American people. We're trying to figure out who is going to be the candidate, and what's going to happen after that is that you're going to have a dozen people that shift from campaign for me mode in the Libertarian Party to campaign for the candidate mode out and about. If I'm the candidate, I know I'm going to have a dozen people behind me helping me. I know I'm going to have a dozen teams that throw themselves into helping make this the best campaign that we can possibly do. If another person ends up as the candidate, with very few exceptions, I would absolutely throw myself into supporting them. Yes, that includes Vermin Supreme, who is a fantastic guy. If he gets the nomination, I'm going to be out there explaining to people that the boot is not the person.
Vermin is not the most objectable candidate running by far, in my opinion. Vermin's a goofball, but he's a good dude.
He is, and I'm impressed when the hat comes off. He speaks very cogently. Dan Berman also gets some grief for his headwear, but I really appreciate he comes
also
in.
Not the most objectable candidate.
No. Dan, I love Dan and Vermin. Ken Armstrong is an amazing guy. Really appreciate him. He was, I would say, the first one that really made me feel welcome. When we were in Olean, I mentioned something about doing a Bible study at Veterans Center, and he leaned over and thanked me for doing that, in the debate.
Ken Armstrong has the best voice in the Libertarian Party.
Oh yeah, my wife loves his voice, and actually, I'll tell this story. He and his wife are amazing people. Dawn is a wonderful lady. They've been traveling the country, but I was not able to make the Indiana convention, so I shipped them some materials, and they put them out on a table for me. And Ken and Dawn were there, and Dawn looked around, and people were putting like their wine glasses on my table, and she's like, "This isn't right." And so she picked up my cards, she picked up my postcards and my materials, and started walking around the room. This is Dawn Armstrong. This is another candidate's wife taking my materials and saying, "Hey, here's a card from Sam Robb. You should check him out. He's a great candidate." Okay. That is something that I don't think you would ever see in the Republican Party. I think that's something you would never see in the Democrat Party. And having a libertarian, if I looked at it, I'm like, yeah, if I were in a similar situation, I would probably do the same thing, right? Because we're not competing for power. We are struggling for liberty together, right? I want to get the message out. If someone connects with Vermin, boom, man, fantastic. Listen to him. Somebody connects with Jo Jorgensen, man, go ahead, spend some time with her, listen to her. Someone connects with Sam Robb, I'm going to do my best to preach liberty to them.
Absolutely. That's good to hear. All right. So we're running up on our time. If someone wants to learn more about you, volunteer or donate for your campaign, how would they go about doing that?
You can hit samrobb2020.com. That's SAMROBB SAMROBB2020.com. Sorry, I almost screwed that up. I blame the anesthetic again. You can also find me on Facebook.
Scrolling at the bottom of the screen, everybody.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. You can also find me on Facebook at SamRob2020, and Twitter is 2020 SamRob. if you'd like to hit the website, if you'd like to volunteer, if you'd like to sign up for the newsletter, you have those options. I also have a page on joining the Libertarian Party, and something that some people don't realize is that there's a paid option where you can contribute to the Libertarian Party and be a paid member. There's also a free option. There's some very small limitations on being a free member, but you can join the Libertarian Party and sign up and become a member of the Libertarian Party without a contribution. If you find yourself, you're a college student or you're in a situation where you really can't spare that cash, that's an option for you as well. And if you are hesitant, if you are thinking, I don't know where I'm going to go this election. I've got creepy Uncle Joe. I've got Orange Man. Neither one of those really appeal to me. I would urge you, go ahead and check me out. Take a look at my policies. Take a look at my positions. If you have questions, you can hit me up on Facebook, send me a message, or send a message to info@samrob2020.com, and we'll do our best to get an answer back to you. I really want to connect with people. I really want to let them know that liberty is the solution to their problem. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
All right. Thanks, Sam, so much for coming on the show. It was a blast having a conversation with you. Hope someday we'll be able to do this again. Thank you again for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, sir. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Remember, everybody, the website is think-liberty.com. That's think-liberty.com. Go ahead and give our Facebook page, Roads to Liberty, a like. We just hit 10,000 this week. We hit 10,000 because we posted a whole bunch of coronavirus articles. But you know what? I'll take the win. All right, everybody. Have a good night and stay sane. Have a good night, everybody.